this. So this is the story of how my wife and I made $171,055 on Kickstarter. I'm going to give you some quick facts to set the stage, let you know what kind of campaigns we ran, how much each campaign brought in, and why you should take a minute right now and smash the like button. It really does help me. So this is not the huge home run project you might be envisioning. Far from it. This took over 8 years and was the product of 48 different Kickstarter campaigns. Now I knew we had some winners, some losers, we had some that were rejected by Kickstarter and others that were never even submitted. But when I started digging into the numbers, I was shocked. So let's look at the numbers. If you take the number of projects that were successfully submitted and approved, you'd have 34. Of those 34, 22 were successful and 12 failed to meet their funding goals, which means you make no money for those. This means our failure rate was about 35%, meaning our success rate was only about 65%. If this whole endeavor was some high school class, we would have failed. That's crazy. But it gets worse. We had another 7 projects that we set up, made videos for, ready to go launch, and they were rejected by Kickstarter. If you take those into account, the numbers go down. The failure rate goes up to about 46%, meaning our success rate is only about 54%. That's about 50-50. That sounds pretty bad, right? Well, it gets even worse. These percentages don't even take into account another 7 projects that for various reasons, I don't want to talk about it, we never even ended up submitting. So if you take those into account, which I think we should, put lots of time into them, our failure rate climbs to over 54%. I mean, we're mostly out here losing. So why am I excited about that? Through mostly failing, we still found a way to generate over $170,000 on Kickstarter. So when we get to the project roster, you'll see, especially at the beginning, we were barely making anything. The mentality to keep pressing onward despite all the failure has bled into so many other aspects of our lives, building a theme of finding success through the failure. It's allowed us to accomplish goals that years back I'd never attempted. Case in point, this YouTube thing. Enough with the pep talk, let's get into the projects. I'm going to timeline all these things so you can see how this whole thing unfolded. So here we are on the projects. I'm going to try to do a little split screen thing here so you can follow along. I'll try to go through these really quick. I know there's a lot of them. We started off with a couple failures. So $0, goal of $2,500, fail. Next one, 3 backers, not bad, $55, fail. The third one, this is where I finally had a little bit of success. It was like a Fiverr. Before Fiverr was a thing, I would redesign your logos. Almost 80 backers, $5 grand. I think this one didn't raise so much money, but it really did inspire me to see that I could figure out a Kickstarter project to make a few $1,000s. So this was a big win in the mental category. The next one, this is when I got Stacie on board. So this is on her account, raised over $5 grand. And again, this is where we really started to figure out that people are spending money on Kickstarter. It is a thing. You don't have to have advertising. You don't have to have like a big following or anything like that. At this point, you could really get on and just put something up. So another one, $1,200. Really simple one here with Stacie, mixology poster. This one kind of surprised me. I'm a big wine connoisseur. 7 backers. This one was all about explaining the different types of wine, sweet and dry, red and white, and just kind of ranking them in order of sweetness or dryness. Maybe it was just above people's heads, I don't know, but it failed with less than $200 being raised, so nothing there. This is where things really took a turn for us. At this point, you can see we're kind of making a few $1,000s, the next one fails. This one, we had no idea. It kind of took on its own viral factor. But we started with 10 cities, the top 10 attractions in each city, and just like a little cityscape at the bottom. We figured out people are super passionate about their cities. So what we ended up doing was saying for every $500 we raise beyond the goal, we'll add a new city and we'll let you vote on which city it's going to be. So we just thought that sounded smart. We didn't realize that was actually a strategy. So all these people started sharing with all their friends in their city, like, hey, let's get San Francisco on here. Let's get Phoenix on here. Phoenix, yeah, that's a city. So this one ended up raising over $36,000 in less than 30 days, almost 1,000 backers. And again, it was a good amount of money, but this was a lesson in like, oh, this is like actually a platform that people are actually spending money. This is an actual business. And this is where we really started to figure out, even beyond the campaign, that people were wanting to buy this. We could start setting up, e-commerce stores and kind of having sales afterwards. So another one here, really simple, $500. I think this is how we originally thought we were gonna make money on Kickstarter, just like little campaigns, 500 here, 500 there. So I would consider this a win. It's only like 20 backers. Here again, another like super simple one. We spent like a couple hours doing the really gross, but we did redesign it. I'll put it somewhere on the screen here. It looks a lot better right now, but 10 backers, less than $300, fail. This is the beginning of what ends up being our biggest best-selling collection ever. Beer diagram. So we had seen stuff similar out there, just talking about like all the different beers. I really wanted something with like a stronger hierarchy, something where you could really see in a visual sense how things kind of ranked out. So we started with beer, goes into ale, then you go into like pale ale and old ale, and then further, classified from there. But this was a successful project, almost 15 grand, or over 15 grand. But what this really taught us was we could do this with beer. Could we also do it with wine or whiskey? So the way that this kind of collection builds is really interesting. This has continued to be one of our best sellers today. So this one, I really like this project for the most strange reason. I'll just go into it real quick. This is when Whiskey Rocks kind of became a thing. Everyone's doing the Whiskey Rock thing. So I figured I got to get in on this Whiskey Rock train, So I ordered just some samples from China, little test tubes and these little marble or granite, cubes. I put them in there. I'm like, I'm gonna do this like nice custom top with the burning thing here. So the testing went great. I ordered like thousands of test tubes. I don't even know how many of these little squares. I got them, and I guess that first test tube, the test tube, the lip or the mouth or whatever was a little bit bigger. So these things were just popping in there, no problemo. When I got the actual like production order or whatever, it was different. None of these little things fit in here. So I had the genius idea, let's go to Lowe's. We'll get a concrete mixer, we'll just throw these things in here and just let them grind themselves down. So we bought this thing, put it in the apartment. Stacie would go to work every day. I would just throw hundreds of these cubes in there and just let it tumble. It was the most ridiculous noise. I don't know how we got away with it. Still raised $1,400, but all or nothing funding, we got nothing for that. So another one for Stacie. I think this is like another good example of just like a design like this took a couple, days to put together. I raised $1,500. This is like a classic win for us because it's just chipping away, just getting that side hustle money. $1,500. We still sell these. Again, I think this is where I figured out how to do like a text wrap in Illustrator. This like looks crazy right now, but it only took a few hours to put together. Still raised $600. Okay. This one, just words on a poster, not trying very hard here, $129, fail. This is again where we were looking at building a collection. So that coffee part 1 went well. Can we do a coffee part 2? So this one, the flavors are a little more exotic. This one raised another $2,600. So I think this is again where we're looking, if this works, like how else can we kind of like parlay that into our next campaign? And this one continues to grow. This one ended up raising a couple $1,000 here, $2,600. I ended up just pulling the plug on it. I was feeling the wrath of Reddit. If you guys haven't been on Reddit, please never go on the Reddit. Unless it's Wall Street Bets, get on that. But this one, I had no idea. I love playing cards, heyo. But I'm not a cardist. There's a thing called a cardist where you're like addicted to the cards. I had no idea, so I didn't know all the terminology and like the right manufacturers and that. And Reddit called me out on it. So I ended up pulling the plug, and it does make a revival later. So not all was lost here. So again, looking at the coffee thing that Stacie did, part 1, part 2, what goes with coffee, some donuts, 13 people agreed, so fail. So again, thinking about that idea of building a collection around something, what else can we do with that? So this one, we just did big city prints. We took the exact same designs, we blew them up. We bought this like massive printer, so we were able to do prints 3 feet by 100 feet long. It was ridiculous. So we had these like massive prints we could do. Did another $6,000 here. But again, the design effort on this, since we had already done it, was like pretty minimal. Here, space print, just showing the different planets and the moons that orbit them. Nerd. So in growing that beer diagram, we figured out beer. People also like the whiskey. So we did the whiskey. This one is where things start building momentum. We took, that first campaign, we raised over $15,000, and we were able to send this campaign to those same set of backers. So it really kind of had a strong following from the beginning. We raised just over $20,000. And this is just the beginning of this collection. So here, casino, prints, I love the gamble. So these were fun to research and put together. Did craps and roulette to start with. We've talked about doing other table games at some point, but we'll see. Food trucks, so this is where we were looking at, again, something super simple, not taking much time. This is when the food truck train really started leaving the station. So we went to big kind of foodie, places like Portland, and we were trying to build something like, what's native to the Portland, what's in the food truck scene, and have some type of pride factor there that people would be into. We ended up raising $0 from 0 people, so it's a big failure. Wine diagram, so just continuing off the back of the beer and the whiskey. People also like the wine, myself included. This one raised $22,000. We're continuing to kind of like build with that audience that we already have, that we built for free. This is no marketing, no ad money, no agency or anything like that. Just over 500 backers. Same concept as before. We're just kind of growing that collection. The next one, this one kind of surprised me. I'm sure you've seen these out and about. Just the idea of, instead of having like a frame with the glass and it's hard to ship and it's expensive, we were just gonna cut up, do like the panels on the top and the bottom, do a couple different kinds of cool wood. I thought it would take off. I thought it was a great way to kind of parlay into that next idea of like, we're selling a bunch of posters. We don't want to do framing, but this is kind of like a hybrid. 3 people agreed. It's a massive failure. So again, we've already done the wine, whiskey, beer. We're just doubling down on that in the non-alcoholic space here. Now we got coffee and tea. Also have lots of passionate coffee and tea drinkers. I guess not as many, but raised over $12,000. On this one, we were just looking at the fact that the city prints had been successful and figuring out how else can we kind of like graphically represent our cities. So we built these cool maps here. I think this was on Stacey's account. Raised another $3,600, so that was exciting. And again, this one has like kind of a part 2, you'll see in a sec. So this is the return of what was the Royal deck, now it's the Noble deck. I'll put a little link if you still want one. This one I'm just super proud of, the fact that we failed and just got like eaten alive on Reddit and then came back 3.5 years later and made this a successful project. I raised over $10,000. This is just something I've always wanted to design, so I was just like super happy to see it come to life. Came up with some cool, boxes in here and labels, all of them are hand signed. It was a good, cool project. I don't think I'll ever do the cards again, but glad I did. So this is kind of what I was just mentioning with Stacey's project with the maps. What else can we do with the maps? We already have the artwork done. We already have all the design files ready. So we figured out print on demand, partnering with printful.com and, making these like yoga pants and shirt. I'll have to see if I can find the yoga pants. But again, a fail. So here, patent prints. This is when I discovered all about the public domain. So I had no idea you could just like, if the art is in the public domain, you can just print it. There's no royalties, there's no attribution or anything. Here, he'll tell you what it's all about.
Are carefully added. This meticulous process is repeated hundreds of times until the collection is complete.
So there's over 500 different patent designs that we ended up doing. It was shocking to see what people were interested in. I think the biggest seller was a toilet paper roll. So I don't know if that's just, I don't know what that's about. The next one, again, just like seeing the success of the beer, the wine, the whiskey, coffee, tea. Next logical steps, gin and vodka. Not as many gin and vodka drinkers, there is about $3,000, but these get easier and easier to kind of put together and do the research. Lots of late night taste testing, if you will. This one, just figuring out kind of some Photoshop action stuff. Not even $1,000, but it's kind of a fun one, it's quick. This one was also really quick. Again, just looking at print on demand, kind of come up with some cool sayings, some cool mottos, if you will. And then just putting them on pillows and totes and towels and all the things. Let's see, did not meet goal though, so fail. Again here, just looking at Photoshop actions, raised $500. This is like our MO from the beginning, just like how can we do a $500 project? If you do like one a month, these did not take long to put together at all. It's just like that slow and steady growth, piece by piece. This last one is perfect to end on. It's the epitome of what we've been doing. We saw success with the beer, we did the wine, whiskey, vodka, gin, coffee, tea. we thought we were done. We ended up just taking the exact same designs, changing the colors on them to more of this like modern design aesthetic. Raised another $6,400. This took like an hour to kind of adjust the files and get them ready to print. Just being able to kind of like look into a market, figure out what's working, and then how we can kind of keep iterating on that and bringing out new products or new sizes or new colors or flavors. It's perfect. So that's it. It isn't meant to be some big flex or something. That is. But it is the story of resilience. It's the story of failing and failing and failing before we found any success at all, and then continuing to fail year after year, project after project. 8 years later, we're still out here failing. So if you want to follow the story of how we failed to the top, thank you guys so much for watching. Tune in to the next one where we'll be making some cold, hard